Years ago, at an organization that I used to work for, there was an employee who was responsible for a variety of administrative tasks. He was also known for being irritable, a barrier to efficiency, and honestly, the kind of guy you really only dealt with when you had to. Well, one of the things that he was responsible for was in-processing and out-processing people as they arrived or left the organization, and it was the bane of his existence. He disliked it so much because there were so many frustrations, so many interruptions. I would watch people pop into his cubicle day after day at any given time asking for assistance with their checklists. So, to help him overcome the anxiety of such an arduous task, he enacted a policy wherein customers had to call him ahead of time for an appointment before coming to in-process or out-process. But you know how policies go. Some people called, some people didn't. And quite honestly, it used to seem to frustrate him just as much when people would call for an appointment as when they would show up unannounced. So I really don't know what he was hoping to achieve with his policy. Well, on one such occasion, a customer popped into his cubicle unexpectedly. He was out processing and needed assistance with his checklist. This was going to be one of the last faces in the organization that the customer saw. The employee heaved an audible sigh, recited the policy to the customer, and promptly told him to come back the next business day at an appointed time. He could have taken care of the customer right then. He wasn't that busy, but the customer needed to be taught a lesson. You don't mess with my policy. Well, I watched the customer square his shoulders, look the employee directly in the eye, and say, "You do whatever you want. I'm not coming back tomorrow." You see, I have just suffered a major cardiac event, and I'm at such risk for another that my doctor has convinced me to resign my position here and commit myself 100% to his care. So if you don't want to do your job, I don't really care because I got bigger problems to worry about. Wow. So you can imagine the employee is taken aback at this point. He's embarrassed, he's ashamed, he knows he's in the wrong, and this only adds to his frustration. Fine, give me your papers. Let's just get this over with right now and be done with it. Unacceptable. Am I right? How hard is it to extend a little bit of grace? How hard is it to do a decent job? This employee was an Air Force civilian, but he really lost the stick when it came to the core value of excellence in all that we do. Maybe nobody explained this core value to him. He was also a civil servant. And those of you familiar with civil service probably understand that the philosophy behind the term civil servant is that the position that you're in exists for the benefit of the American people. It's different from regular corporate America jobs, and that your boss, your stakeholder, your masters, if I might be so bold, are the American tax-paying public. But I don't think anybody explained this to the employee either. Or maybe he just lost his way. Is this frustrating to any of you? It should be. But how many times have we seen the same sort of attitude play out in our own bureaucracies, so much so that we come to expect it, we accept it, and we even sometimes make it the butt of our jokes? Well, this too, I feel, should be unacceptable. So here's my big idea. When people take personal responsibility for their own excellence, society flourishes. To put it more pointedly, when you take responsibility for your own excellence, your office, your organization, your community, your home, your church, your world flourishes. Imagine with me, if you will, just by way of example, a 3-person office where every member on that 3-person team has dedicated themselves to the pursuit of excellence in all that they do. It might look something like this. At the very lowest level, you have a data entry clerk who's just responsible for pulling a bunch of numbers from a bunch of different sources and putting them in a database so that the data analyst can then run statistical analyses and turn those numbers into usable information. This information then goes to the section chief who's responsible for creating a monthly report to leadership for decision making, let's say on the 10th of every month. But remember, these 3 people have dedicated themselves to the pursuit of excellence. So on the 8th of the month, the section chief is already in her supervisor's office, report in hand, discussing an issue that the team has identified and a solution that they've developed to counteract that issue. That sounds pretty excellent, right? Well, she's only able to do this because the data analyst saw what looked like might be a disturbing trend, went the extra mile to do a few more analyses, and developed this information that pointed to the problem and helped with the solution. But he was only able to do that because the data entry clerk at the lowest level of the organization saw some future value in some numbers beyond what he was required to do, talked to the data analyst, and added a few columns to the database. So you can see very quickly that just because of the actions of 3 people starting at the lowest level, this organization now has a solution to a problem they didn't even know existed 24 hours ago. And they've come up with a solution that will help the organization out of this issue long before any consequences come to bear. And let's just say that this team's leadership is excellent as well. They're going to make sure that these individuals are rewarded in due course all the way down to the data entry clerk. Now extrapolate this idea 12, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times, and very quickly you can see the difference that this can make for the entire human race. In fact, you might say that by being excellent, you can change the course of human history. Except when you don't, because sometimes you won't, to quote Dr. Seuss. How many of you out here, the audience, are already pursuing excellence in what you do? You're still human, you still make mistakes, but by golly, you're out there, you're trying, you're going the extra mile, and you're doing everything that you can. You avoid complacency, you get out of ruts, and you work hard. But have you ever heard the utopia that I just described? Probably not. You've probably never witnessed that. How many more of you started out jobs, careers even, with ambitions to excellence? You want to do good. You want to redefine the meaning of efficiency. You want to be amazing, and you want to change the way these things work. But very quickly you found that there was no consistent reward for the excellence that you were pursuing. There was no promotion, no bonus, no feedback even, no indication that anyone at all saw value in what you were striving for. And maybe pretty soon you ceased to see the value yourself. I think maybe that's what happened to the employee in my story. So, I'm sorry to disappoint you all. I really felt like I had a good ball rolling, and we were going really well, and we were building up motivation for excellence. And then I just sort of took a wrecking ball to it, didn't I? Well, maybe I did, and maybe I didn't. You see, the reality is that none of us can be responsible for more than our very own excellence. The reality is that we can't even measure the value of excellence in terms of things that we normally measure value in, like money. In fact, I'm convinced that if you took a part-time, after-work, retail job, you would most likely see a higher dollar-to-effort return on investment than you would for pursuing everyday excellence in your current position. That's the reality. But the reality is also that you can make a positive difference in your world, in your life, and in the lives of those around you. You see, the people who are consistently excellent, who consistently strive for excellence, are excellent for the sake of sheer excellence, and that is its own reward. They know that with every job well done, every extra mile gutted out, they are making the world around them a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. They also know that the only person on earth who can dictate the value that they bring to their community is they themselves. And that's the reward for them. So, if understanding the reality of the situation, our rose-colored glasses are off, but we still understand that there's value in excellence, you need a shot in the arm to continue pursuing excellence. Maybe you've been discouraged recently. Maybe you've been discouraged years ago, but you want to take up the charge for pursuing excellence again. Or maybe for the first time ever, you're motivated to do more than you have to do. If you need a shot in the arm, then follow these simple steps. I call it the rule of ones. First, find something around you that needs to be done and do it. Oh, and it's not your job either. It may be no one's job, but it's something out there and it needs to be done. And don't tell anybody. This is not about you. This is excellence for the sake of sheer excellence. And step back and consider that even if you're the only person in the world who recognizes it, you've made the world just a little bit better. Step 2, find something within your job bucket, something that is your job, and it's something that's recurring and something that you don't particularly like. Let's call it your in and out process. And attack it and get it done because you know you've got to do it anyway, and find one very small way, however small, to improve that process for next time. Consider that you just made your world a tiny bit better. Step 3, find someone within your sphere of influence and find one very small and simple way to just give them more than they expect. Step back and consider that you made their world just a little bit better. And finally, if you've done these 3 things and you find that you have created value around you, and let's be honest, if you're being honest with yourself, you will see that you have added value, however small, to the world around you. And do it again. Just one more time. One more time. One more time. And I guarantee you, you will start to see the cumulative effects of your pursuit of excellence. And you will see the difference that it makes in the world around you, and that will grow. And the impact that you have on the lives of others will grow, and they will notice it too. This process is tried and true. It works, and it will help motivate you. It will become habit forming. Well, how do I know all this? Well, it's because I've experienced it. In case you haven't figured it out already, I am the guy in the story that I told you. I was the employee. I started out my civil service career wanting to make a massive difference, wanting to change the world, redefine what it meant to be a civil servant, and I was going to get all the glory for this. And I very quickly lost my way. And so I settled in a nice complacent rut, looked over the 30-year horizon of my career, and sighed, a very disappointed young man in his early 20s. A couple of years after my interaction with the customer that I told you about, I sort of slipped and fell over backwards into this process, and quite by happy accident found the motivation to pursue excellence for its own reward. And now I'm pretty much excellent. You're welcome. Except for I can't really say that, can I? There are people in this audience who could poke holes in that claim, so I have to be careful. I'm not excellent, but I pursue excellence. I'm human, I make mistakes, but I'm always trying to do better. And because I have found the way to separate myself from the belief that excellence only has value in it when those around me and those above me find value in it, I have found the true reward of pursuing excellence for its own sake. Thank you all very much.